Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are. My name's Danielle Horning. I'm going to be your host this evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. So I'm one of the customer success managers here at Thrively. Let me just share my screen. Sorry about that. Perfect. Here we are. Okay, so just to get us started, I want to talk a little bit about Thrively and just give you guys a little bit of housekeeping so we can make this a great webinar. So Thrively was founded on a core philosophy that every child has a genius and deserves to thrive. So with that, our goal is to develop the whole child. So many of you have gone to different trainings with us. You've been on Zoom calls with us, and we've gone over our big 3 items, which is identifying students' strengths, instilling hope, and supporting their well-being. So our goal is to really hone in on this, and we want to create a paradigm shift in education. We want it to be asset-based focused, so students are not in this deficit type of learning. We're ready to get going. So I want to introduce Eric Shagala. Shagala, sorry. Sorry, Eric. I wanted to introduce him. He is going to be our educational practitioner that's joining us today. Thank you so much for being here, Eric. He is an amazing person and has been an inspiration to us at Thrively, and we just want to hone in on some of the things he's doing in Vista Unified. So hello, Eric.
Hello. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Yeah, so I just want to get started with, can you give us a little bit of background information on Vista Unified and the school that you actually founded, Vita?
Yeah, so I've been in Vista for 22 or 23 years, and we are in northern San Diego County. And the school that we founded is called Vita, which the word Vita itself means life in Spanish. And it's an acronym for the Vista Innovation Design Academy. And what we aspired towards in our school transformation effort that we took on was we wanted school to be more about the lives of the children than just going to school. And then at the same time, on a parallel track, for the adults, we wanted to be more about the lives that they lead than just going to work.
100%. And you're the director of school transformation. How has that been going for you?
It's great. Started July 1st. So it came off a 12-year principalship at Vita and get to work with principals and solve challenges and just really look at the experience of learners in all of our schools.
Awesome. I wanted to just get started with, how did you first hear about Thrively and how did you get invested in it? Why did you want to kind of create a Thrively platform within your school?
Originally, the idea of tending to strengths, interests, and values of young people came to us from Ed Hidalgo, who was working in HR at Qualcomm. Qualcomm is a major, I think they do semiconductors company in San Diego, and they were bringing students down, middle school students, to their campus to work on coding and do different projects in sort of a high-tech makerspace. And part of that work was Ed would talk to students about their strengths and understanding their strengths and their interest and also their values where they want to lead their lives. And as he was doing this, what we discovered is, while he was using sort of a Gallup tool, it wasn't very middle school friendly. And so right about the time the founder of Thrively and I connected, and just really started speaking this language of belief that we had at Vita, that we wanted this to be more about the lives of children than just school. And the opportunities that Thrively provided really allowed for us to make that a reality for kids as opposed to just saying it. It was not just a platform, but was really a tool to hone in and accomplish what we believed.
100%. 100%. And so just kind of digging a little deeper into, Vista's use of Thrively, can you share kind of what Vista has utilized within the platform?
Yeah, so from those early days with Thrively, and I think we were one of an early adopter, as we
Yes.
would call in innovation spheres. I it's a blessing because I've been able to see the work grow so much in Thrively. And now they offer the RISEC, which is student strengths, which is attached to John Holland's vocational psychology, and the well-being and the hope index, and all the lessons and SEL and career exploration. So all these aspects of Thrively, it's been great to watch over the last decade or so how it's grown and been able to offer more for students and for schools. And now that I'm in this district role, thought about the opportunity for how do we bring this to a broader audience, so it's not just kids within a few isolated schools in Vista, but every single child, I think, within Vista Unified offer or deserves what is offered within Thrively. And one of the big levers that we're working with right now is in June, last June, our school board adopted a new graduation requirement, which ties graduation requirements for high schoolers to the minimum entrance requirements for the University of California and the California State University system. And within that, as a support mechanism, the board also approved a personal learning plan, which you can probably guess has words like strengths and interests and aspirations tied into it, all thread in the sense of hope, which of course Thrively allows for us to do. And so you actually, Danielle, have come out, you've trained all of our principals in it, and we're going all in. We've purchased it for every child in the district. All of our principals have been trained. In fact, tomorrow morning, I think we're hanging out because you're going to train all of our counselors to really make sure that everyone understands what the power and the options are within Thrively to really, make a difference. We have you see the stats on the screen. 64% of the students in our district are low income. So instead of just talking about how we defeat things like generational poverty, how do we actually do it? And you actually do it by incorporating good, solid, strong tools. And that's why I'm excited about Thrively.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes, and I'm incredibly thankful that you're a part of our team in really implementing Thrively within Vista Unified. And yes, we're hanging out tomorrow, so I get to work with Eric very closely with just how we want to bring in Thrively and really our goals for the district. Just can you elaborate a little bit more on what you've seen as far as the impact that Thrively's had on Vista Unified?
Yeah, so as far as Vista Unified, like that's very much, I would say, in the building stages. As a middle school principal, knowing because there was several elementary schools that were already implementing Thrively with a lot of great success. And there's a difference in kids, not based on their background or the family income or what their parents wake up and go do every day, but by how schools, especially elementary schools, shape. They tend to the soul of a child. And what we've seen is a difference. And if anyone works in a middle school or even extrapolate up to a high school, like sometimes you can tell kids come from different feeder schools based on how they show up, the questions that they ask, how well aware of their identity that they are, and then how that works with in terms of how they treat other people and how they tend to the work that they're doing within school. So what I've seen in my role as a middle school principal is those kids coming in from the elementary schools that have really been doing a lot of work with Thrively, where kids really know themselves. And they're not just asking questions like, oh, what can I take as electives? Like they want to know, what are you offering me? This is what I bring to the table. And they're like 10 and a half, 11. And these aren't like their words, but this is like the push we get from them about what do you have to offer me because this is who I am. And it's really been fantastic. And so our hope has then been, how do we take 830 kids and ship them up to the high school level, not just for high school, but for life, to be prepared and ready. And so our kids would always leave Vita with we call it a professional eighth grade resume, where they're indicating what their strengths are, they're indicating what their interests are, they're relating that to classes and experiences that they've had in their time, and then using that as sort of a catalyst for where they're going and what they want to do next.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I 100% agree with you. You know, building off of their strengths is so important. And I love that they're coming in and asking what you guys have to offer. Because, I mean, that shows a lot of confidence that's already been instilled in them. So that's exactly what Thrively's goal is. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Um, so just off of that, we're constantly learning from educators just like Eric and trying to refine Thrively. We're trying to really make it easy for educators, and we want to amplify what people are already doing within the classrooms. So, with that, we offer so much extensive data on your students, right? And we really try to get to know them and help them build self identity, just as Eric said. So, how do we do this? Right? We want to customize this. We want to operationalize the data that we're receiving because this is invaluable data on our students. So we want to bring the K through 12 journey to life. So with that, I want to dive into our digital portfolio really quick. So this is a student's view. So with this, right, we can see Alondra's digital portfolio. So I'm only going to touch on a few things just, for time. But with this, students spend 12,000 to 14,000 hours in their learning journey just from K through 12th grade, right? That's a lot of time that they're spending with educators, that they're spending with their peers, and we want them to know themselves, right? So the digital portfolio really lines up their journey and helps them kind of express themselves. So just from the start, we offer students to write a very bold statement about themselves, kind of a dream statement about who they are and what they want to be. Because we constantly want to say, what are your dreams and how can we help you reach them? Right? We want to create learners who are confident, and we want them to just be inspired and goal driven, right? So from our start, we offer them kind of a bold statement, but this is really capturing, a journey, their learning journey from K through 12th grade. So we have their strengths profile. We have different assessment data that they can take. So Eric actually mentioned the RIASEC assessment. So that's the interest profiler, really honing in on what is your personality type and what kind of jobs do those go into. So we're trying to be very proactive with all of this information on our students. And I've actually worked with different high schools discussing how students can actually use a lot of this information within their resumes. So, what kind of types of learner you are personally, what kind of skills have you developed along the way, and how are you continuing to develop them year by year? And then again, with the RIASEC assessment, really honing in on your personality type and what kind of careers those go into. And again, with, our main three, we tie into hope. And really, we're constantly trying to build them up, trying to make them more positive for the future. Their goals, this is probably one of my favorite aspects of Thrively, but this is really helping them be goal-driven people. So as a teacher, creating goals for them and really honing in on, okay, how are you reaching these goals? What are highlights that you've done? What are things that you're aspiring to be? And what are the steps that you're taking to get there? So I only covered some of this just because I want to offer us a little bit more time to discuss and ask questions. So, Eric, just coming back to you, just on the little bit that you've seen so far, how can you see other educators being able to benefit from this information on each individual student?
Well, I think the more that we know about any given individual, the better we're able to tend to their needs and really help co-design alongside them their best future path. One of the things that we talk a lot when I was principal with parents is when we talk about, there's a lot of schools that talk about being future ready or 21st century ready or this or that or innovative, and they don't always necessarily always know what they're talking about with that. And so what the tools that you're outlining, what I've seen and what we've done with Thrively, what it allows is for us to really begin harnessing future forward conversations. And so what we know from industry is that when I was growing up and when parents who have middle school age kids and high school or even elementary, when we were growing up, it was like, how can schools help kids unlock doors in their future? But what we're looking at with the unpredictability of the global economy, the rapidly changing emerging technologies that are facing industry right now, what our kids really need to be able to do is not have keys to unlock some door. They need to be able to design their own door and then open it themselves. And if you don't know yourself, if you're not aware of, what gets you up in the morning or what your strengths are, and what the coolest thing that working with strengths with students has been for me is when they realize they have language to put with the things that they know about themselves, but they cannot articulate. And when they can't articulate, then you just kind of remain lost. And so it's really, really powerful. And when the adults do it. And so when the adults go in and they take their Thrively strengths, so they're speaking the same language as the students as well.
Thank you for touching on that. Yeah, with Thrively, we try to really incorporate the language and helping them define who they are, because that's the thing, even, as a sixth grade teacher in the past, that was constantly an issue of, well, what is an analytical person? Providing them the language of, no, you have these strengths, but what are they? And what does this entail for your future? I think is huge. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And as we're just moving forward, right? So these are some of the things that the digital portfolio has inside it. So to get your own profile set up, really the first thing I would do personally is take the strengths assessment yourself, because you're getting an outlook on what are the students seeing and what is this strengths assessment going to do for me? What is it giving you? And who doesn't love to know more about their own strengths, right? And that's something in the classroom you can bring up and say, this is how I'm strong, right? I'm flexible, I'm compassionate. So really sharing that with your students is going to empower them because they want to make connections with you. So not only are you helping them, build strengths themselves and having an understanding of that, but you're also helping them make connections with others. And then for how often students are updating their portfolios, it's really up to you as an educator. So I have different teachers that are creating a goal for a goal over a month or even a few months. It's up to you as a teacher, as a counselor. I think there are some goals that we can set for an entire year. So building on, collaboration or teamwork. These are just some of the goals. And Thrively has done an amazing job of creating goals already ready to use within our goals section. And they can constantly be adding evidence. So thank you for asking that. Yes, 100%. They can add evidence. So I had a student not long ago that their goal was to improve public speaking. And so one of their highlights was that they actually joined and we're going to be an actor in a play for Beauty and the Beast. So it's just different ways of building evidence for themselves, but for them to see that they're constantly working on a goal is important, and your insights would be helpful.
Yeah, so we're really proud of the work that we did in co-designing alongside parents, community members, students ages from I think second grade was the youngest, all the way up through seniors in high school. And we started this work coming right out of COVID. And at the time, a lot of portraits were talked about, graduate profiles or portrait of a graduate type thing. And the elementary kids in the room as we were designing this, because that's how it started for us, were wondering what does that mean for us in elementary school if we're talking about graduate. And so that's where we started using the idea of the learner portrait. And so what we've done is we have a very lengthy document. It's called the detailed version, but then we have a shorter one that's bite size for parents and students and teachers to really dig into. And Thrively is great because all over I just talked to had a chance to talk to all the counselors in our district right before this, and we were talking about how many times the words strengths and interest come up in the detailed version of our learner portrait. And so we're using Thrively as a way to like really operationalize what it is, our promise to the community. And then we also have, learners one thing, that's our promise, but we've also developed portraits around the adults. What do the adults need to know and be able to do, and how do they act? And then the system, and what does the system provide in order to allow all this? So it's sort of a three-prong approach.
Thank Thank you for sharing. Yeah, they've done amazing work with the Portrait of a Learner, and yeah, we're continuing to connect and build on that with Thrively too. So excited. It's a lot of opportunities here with Vista, and they've done an incredible job at really infusing Thrively into what they're doing at the schools and really supporting their students. So thank you guys for being an inspiration to the work we're doing already. Perfect. And I see another question. Um, how do we incorporate the habits of mind? Okay, so the habits of mind really, it's an assessment that goes into developmental skills, right? So we're talking about skills that are going to make them be successful adults. So over time, students should be taking this, I would say, every year. So with that, they should be constantly building on these developmental skills, with listening and understanding, empathy, thinking independently, managing, being impulsive, and metacognition, looking into all these things that the assessment is going to kind of lay out for students. But it gives you a lot of information as a teacher as well, just into, okay, so what are things we want to work on developmentally wise? It's really a picture of your students and the skills that they need to be a successful adult. So, and then we have going off of the portrait of a learner, how are you measuring and assessing your portrait of a learner competencies? Do you use Thrively to support your district in measuring student progress towards the portrait of a learner skills?
That's a great question. So we've actually developed progressions from K through 12 for each aspect of the learner portrait. And elementary teachers are in the grading period for their first progress reports for the year. And there's actually a section that's been developed of the elementary progress reports for teachers to be able to identify as sort of like comments for parents around how their students, their children are doing around the portrait based on age and progression. So I would love to share what we've done with that and what it looks like. And when a student knows themselves, like those are things that would come out of the tool for Thrively. But as a separate document, we've created what the progressions are.
And just to be respectful, of everyone's time because it is our 30 minutes are about up. If you're interested in learning more about asset-based learning and strengths-based education, we encourage you to visit thrively.com/classroom for additional resources. We have other webinars, tons of different resources for you as educators. And you can always follow us on social media. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, we're on all of those. And then just so you guys know, our next webinar is actually going to be on November 12th, and it's Thrively and a multi-tiered systems of support approach. So thank you for attending the webinar, and thank you for your time tonight. Thank you, Eric. You're amazing.
Thank you for having me.